Let's talk about focus transitions in video games. A focus transition is a basic concept. The player is focused on one thing, you need them focused on something else. How do you move their focus? This is a focus transition. Wow, that's really vague. It could be anything. Well, yeah, that's the problem with this, because a focus transition is something that happens on many levels across all of games. But despite that, it's not something we talk about as much as we should, so let's talk about it. Let me give you a concrete example. You're making a casual phone game, so it's a match 3 puzzler. And you're also going to put in a story about saving cats and building bridges and all that jazz. So while we're thinking in terms of focus transitions, these two are the focuses. The player can either be playing the match 3 game or the story. The actual gameplay involves switching their focus between these two elements very frequently, quite frequently. This is the problem. This is where you can easily go wrong. A bad focus transition will leave the player feeling uninterested, flat, unrewarded, and they won't want to play anymore. A good focus transition will make them more excited for whatever you're telling them to focus on next. So if you won this game, you finished your puzzler, you're transitioning into the story. How do we make this focus transition here more interesting? How do we make it so that you want to move your focus into the story? How do we make it so that you want to engage with the story next, just on the power of our transition? Well, I mean, you could use like music or explosions or other audio-visual cues, but the normal way to do it is to use focusing rewards. So, you have won your match 3 puzzle. Congratulations, here's a gem, here's a daisy, here's some wood, whatever, right? The whole point is that the rewards that you get here immediately tell the player to refocus. So just by the fact that you're getting a reward, that's telling you that what you were focusing on is done. You've reached the end. You have to find something else to do. These rewards tell you what to do next, because you already know what these are valuable for. These are resources that are useful in story mode. You can buy cat food, fix bridges, talk to the mayor, whatever you need to do, you need those resources to do it. So just by having those resources provided to you, it tells you, oh, okay, well, I need to refocus, and I'm going to refocus on the things I can now do because I was just given these cool rewards that unlock new story beats. I can't wait to see what's coming next in the story. This is hardly like mind-shaking, mind-blowing design here. You give rewards that make the player excited to use the rewards. Yeah, obviously. But do you often think about it like this? I think that a lot of people don't. I think that a lot of people will try and give you rewards, but won't necessarily connect those rewards to the thing you're focusing on. A good example of that would be in an open world game, right? So there's this cool mountain off in the distance in your open world game. And the idea is that the player's probably going to want to go there. And assuming that you don't distract them too much, they're eventually going to get to that huge mountain and climb it. It's something they're going to be focused on. Now, there are going to be lots of other things that happen along the way, but that focus probably won't waver too much. So when they reach the top of the mountain, what do you do? What's next? How do you handle this? What's at the top of the mountain? Well, for many people, what's at the top of the mountain will be a reward. The devs will be like, okay, well, they reached the top of the mountain, so let's give them some gold or a dragon fight or a skit or whatever, right? You give them something that rewards them for having the gumption to climb the mountain. But none of those things help to focus the player on anything new. So, when the player picks up that gold or fights that dragon, they're not left with a bold, exciting new future of new possibilities. they're left on top of a mountain with nothing. So how do you refocus them? How do you create a focus transition that works? Well, first you have to decide what you want their focus to transition into. When the player reaches the top of this mountain, what do you want them to think about doing next? And this doesn't have to be super specific. You don't have to be like, yes, next they must take the amulet to the Emperor of the Dragons. No, you can be a little bit more vague than that. You can say things like, well, I want them to set a new world objective. I want them to pick out a new mountain to climb, a new forest to delve into, a new strange metallic glowing thing on the horizon that they can now see. That's fine. Let's assume that's what you want to do. So when the player reaches the top of the mountain, what you want them to do is realize that they should go here next. You want them to change their focus to pursuing this glowing thing on the horizon. But you can't just snap it. It's not like, oh, you're done with the mountain, go over there now. There has to be a transition, right? So what sort of transition would you create? Would you have a hut that would be full of things about, oh yes, next we will go to the glowing mountain or the glowing tower on the horizon. That's where my wife went. That's where my dragon went. That's where the mages came from, whatever, right? That's one way to do it, but here's the fun thing about focuses. A player's focus is very tightly controlled by what they can see and what they can hear. So, if you climb to the top of this mountain, the player is going to be focused on the top of this mountain. They're going to be thinking about what's at the top of this mountain. But if what's at the top of the mountain is something that is inside, like a hut or a cave or something like that, right? Or, a castle, however big you want to make it. They go inside, and then their focus is on what's inside this house. And when they come out of the house, their focus is no longer on the top of the mountain or the center of the house. It's now on the vast world that they can see outside of the house, including that strange glowing tower on the horizon. And this is why it's so important to think in terms of focus transitions, because it's not all about providing perfect rewards. It's often just about making sure that the player's focus gets reset in a way that inspires them. And one of the easiest ways to inspire the players is to make sure that the wondrous sights that you're allowing them to see are actually being seen. So if their focus is laser tight on the top of the mountain, then they're not going to see anything that's around the mountain. But if they come out through a door, they're going to have to see the world outside the door. And if the world outside the door just happens to look down across a vast, gloomy forest and a metallic, glowing tower, that's what they're going to notice. You can add in some rewards, of course. You can add in some stuff. It's like, yeah, the dragons came from the glowing tower. But it's important to realize that these are techniques that are not limited. You can combine them, you can build on them, you can come up with your own techniques. This is not a master course. But as soon as you start to think in terms of getting the players to be interested in the thing you want them to be interested in, that's that connection where you're taking them from one focus into another focus. Feeling out that connection and how to make that transfer is really important and really powerful, in my opinion. Let me know what you think. Bye.